Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back. If you are, welcome back everyone. If you already joined our session, thank you so much for joining us again. And if you are new, let us introduce ourselves again. My name is Lami,
And my name is Soso.
and if you're joining us right now, you have arrived at exactly the right moment because we are about to talk about something that has been living in our brain for like rent free for about a month.
That sounds kind of serious.
Also serious because it's actually kind of embarrassing, but I think this is on point.
Okay, so what we gonna talk about?
Uh, are we are we going to talk about the feeling of being awkward in the situations that should be very simple, like not really hard situations, not high stakes situation, not a job interviews or first days or even the public speeches, but we still feel awkward. Like I'm talking about the small moment, the normal one, everyday moments where suddenly your brain forgets how to be a person.
Okay, so can you give me an example?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Like walking towards someone in a long hallway, you know you are far apart and you make an eye contact from 50 feet away. And then you have to figure out when to look away, when to smile, and when to say hello. And for 30 seconds, your entire existence is just feeling uncomfortable.
I know exactly how it feels, right?
Yes, right. Or when you are at a checkout counter and the cashier is scanning your items and you don't know where to look. You're looking like everywhere. And do you even watch them scan? No, right? So do you look at your phone? Or do you make small talk? Or do you stare at the gums display like it's the most fascinating thing that you have ever seen? Even you may pretend that you are watching your phone.
I have studied so many gums display in my life already.
Exactly. Like these are very simple situations. Nothing is wrong and no one is being mean. There's no danger. And but your body floats with this weird quiet discomfort.
Yeah, and the worst part is that you just cannot explain it and you just like feel off, like kind of chunky, like you forgot how to be a human for like a second.
Yes, this is exactly what we're talking about today, like 5 reasons why we feel awkward in these very simple situations. And I also want to say this upfront because I think a lot of us carry shame about this.
I definitely thought that why am I like this? Why can't I just do like simple things and why I keep feeling awkward or weird sometimes?
Yeah, exactly. And the answer is not that you're broken. The answer is that there are actual physiological and neurological reasons why very simple situations can trigger the components.
Right. And we're not here to like fix ourselves, right? But we are more like to
Mhm.
understand ourselves more.
Yes, because before we dive in, chat, we also want to hear from you guys, the audience. So drop a simple situation that somehow makes you feel awkward, or do you have something to share?
If you have any like awkward moments you want to share with us, you can comment down below and we
Mhm.
may read it after. So now without further delay, let's move on to reason number one, why we feel like awkward in simple situations.
Okay, the reason number one why we feel awkward in several situations is something I call the gap between the expectation and the reality.
What do you actually mean by the expectation?
So here's the thing, like every social situation comes with an invisible script, a set of unwritten rules about how it's supposed to go, and we carry these scripts around in our heads without even analyzing it.
Quite interesting the way you say it, but can you give me an example like of an invisible script that you have mentioned?
Okay, let's take something like goodbye. The invisible script for saying goodbye to someone usually goes something like this. You signal that you're leaving, and the other person acknowledges it, and you exchange a favorite phrase and then you exit. It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, sound quite simple.
But what happens when the script breaks? Like what happens when you say, "Where I should probably get going," and the other person says, "Oh, okay," and then you just stare. You don't know what to do.
I don't know.
Yes, that's fine. At the time, suddenly the script is gone, and you don't know what comes next. And do you just turn around and walk away? And you might think that it's rude, right? So, or do you say something else, or do you wave, or what do you do? At that moment of uncertainty, the awkwardness comes in.
So like the awkwardness doesn't actually come from the situation itself, right? But it's coming from the mismatch between what you expected to happen and what actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. And the bigger the gap between the expectation and the reality, the more awkward it feels.
So it's more like the brain is actually running a prediction like AI or something. And the prediction has like the interaction, like how it will go, like the flow. And when reality doesn't match with the prediction, your brain doesn't know how to respond at all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And here's the thing, most of these are completely you're not actively thinking, here's the script for ordering the coffee or how it should go. And that modern our brain confused.
So what kind of like situations that create like the biggest gap?
Um, so where the script is like situation where there is no clear right way to act. Think about walking into the room with a full of people you don't know, and there is do you not, or do you leave and you don't see anyone?
I think like I have done that a lot, and sometimes I kind of regret what I have done.
The same to awkwardness comes from the fact that you search for the right script. I cannot find one.
So like the simple situations isn't exactly simple in terms of the social rules. It's simple in terms of like stake, but complicated in terms of the expression, right?
Yes. That really a good way to put it. Like low stakes, high ambiguity, and that's the recipe for the awkwardness.
So how actually like what can we do about that? And how could we like reduce the gap?
Unfortunately, you cannot eliminate the gap entirely because you cannot predict anything you cannot predict anything. But you can lower your expectation that there is a right way to do things. You can remind yourself that most people are not judging you for your script as harshly as you are.
So by the way you say it, it's like the awkwardness is more internal, right? It's like it's from us our inside what we think.
Yes, exactly. The other person is not probably thinking, wow, that goodbye was structurally flow. They don't even know that they just living their life.
That actually like comforting.
Yes, it actually is. And it's also the first step, very first step, that realizing that openness often comes from your own internet expectation, not from anything being actually wrong.
I see. I think this is all we want to discuss about reason number one. So without further delay, let's move to reason number two. For reason
Yes.
number two is something that I think a lot of us may kind of do constantly without even realizing it. It's called a self-monitoring overload.
Self monitoring. Can you say more about that?
Okay, so like self-monitoring is when you watch yourself while you're interacting. Like you're not just having a normal conversation, right? You are also observing yourself having the conversation. Like you check your tone, you check your expressions, your body language, your word choice. Like you're asking yourself, am I doing this right?
Yes, I really do that. I do that a lot.
I also do that a lot too. Like here's this thing, like a little bit of self-monitoring is like quite normal for everyday life, right? It's how we learn social skills, but when you're in a simple situations, like self-monitoring can actually become the problem.
How come?
For me, I think because simple situations don't require a lot of monitoring. You don't have to monitor yourself a lot. You don't need to analyze every micro expressions when you're just ordering a sandwich. But if you're someone who is used to monitoring yourself closely, maybe because you have like anxiety, maybe because of the past criticism, maybe just because that how your brain works, so that you do it anyway.
So you're pretty like a lot of effort, high effort processing into a very low effort situation.
Kind of like that, and that create a kind of like cognitive overload. Your brain is working too hard for the situations like that doesn't need high demand, and the mismatch feels like so awkward.
So it's not the situation is awkward. It's just that you bring in too much attention to yourself within the situation.
Yeah, and like the more you monitor yourself, the more you notice small things that don't matter. Like, did my voice sound weird? And when I say hi, did I blink too much? And I standing at a strange angle? Like you keep asking yourself questions.
So I have definitely worried about mine too.
Me too, like because sometimes I look good on the right side, sometimes I look good on the left. And none of those things matter to anyone because you're watching yourself so closely and it actually feels like huge.
So the awkwardness is actually self-generated. You're making yourself awkward by over-attending to yourself.
That sounds quite harsh when you put it in that way, but yes, it's not like all your fault. Self-monitoring become a habit. It's protective mechanism and you're trying to make sure you don't do anything wrong at all.
But in simple situations, there's almost nothing that you can do wrong.
Exactly. That's the irony, like the state you are low, that your self monitoring is completely unnecessary, but your brain doesn't know how's that. Your brain is still like operating as if you're in a high stakes social evaluation.
So how do you tone down that self-monitoring?
One way is to deliberately shift your attention outward instead of asking, how am I coming across? Ask, like, what do I notice about this room? What color is the wall? What does the floor look like? Something like that.
So you are distracting yourself from yourself.
Yeah, kind of like when you start asking yourself questions, like you're giving your brain something else to focus on. And when your brain is like focused outward, it has less energy to monitor inward.
Actually, that makes sense. So the goal isn't to eliminate self-awareness. The goal is just to stop overproducing it in situations that don't really need it.
And here's something else also, like most people are not monitoring you. Most people are too busy monitoring themselves as well.
Yeah, that's actually really comforting and quite so true. Yeah.
It is, and the person you're talking to is probably also wonder like, oh, if they're being weird and you're both doing the same thing.
So it's basically we all just awkward together.
Pretty much like that.
Okay, now I think that's so much enough for the reason number two. And let's move forward to the reason number three right now. So it is one that I think explains so much awkwardness, especially in the group settings. It is the absence of a clear rule.
Okay, so I need you to explain this one because I think this might be my whole life.
Okay, so here's the idea. When you have a clear rule in a situation, you know what you're supposed to do, right? And you have instructions, even if they're unspoken. And when you have instructions, your brain can relax.
So can you give me an example?
Okay, for example, a cashier has a clear rule, like they scan the items, they take the payment, and they say, have a nice day in the end. And also the teacher has also a clear role, like a host has a clear role. Even a guest at a dinner party has also a clear role. And then you show up. You compliment the food, and then you have clear the plates.
Okay, so you talk a lot about having a clear role. So what actually happens when you don't actually have a clear role at all?
But you get the feeling of standing in the room, full of people, and not knowing what you're supposed to be doing. Like should you be talking, listening, helping, leaving, or just standing still, like moving around?
That's quite awful, right?
Yeah, because here's the thing as well. Like simple situations often have very ambiguous rules. Like think about standing in an elevator with one other person that you don't know. Like, what's your role then? Are you supposed to talk? Or are you supposed to look at the numbers like from the elevator? Or are you supposed to pretend that does not end?
Also, like there's actually no script for that at all, right?
Yeah, exactly. You do not expect for that. And because there is no clear rule, your brain has to improvise. And the improvisation is a energy intensive and that energy causes feels like awkwardness. Right?
So the awkwardness is like your brain is working overtime to figure out a role that doesn't even exist at all.
Yes, and the more ambiguous the rule, the more you awkward you feel.
How about the situation when you're in between role, like when you arrive early to a meeting and you're the first person there and you're not quite a host but quite a guest either, like something in between.
Yes, that in between space is extremely awkward because you have no behavioral guidelines like do you sit, do you stand, or do you greet the people as they arrive, or do you stay silent?
For me, if I'm in that situations, I would just scroll TikTok on my phone and just look down.
Yeah, same. I think that's exactly what most of the people are gonna do. And that is a coping mechanism. Like you are creating a temporary role for yourself. Like the person who is occupied already with their phone, like to escape the discomfort of having no role.
Okay, so I can stop blaming my phone because actually the phone isn't the problem at all, right? But it's actually the lack of role is the problem itself.
Yeah, exactly. And here's a solution. You can give yourself a role, like even a small one or even an invented one.
What do you mean giving yourself a small role?
Okay, like if you are in an uncertain situation, decide a tiny role, a small role for yourself. I am the person who will hold the door for the people. Or I am the person who will pour the drinks. Or I am the person who will ask the questions. Like, it does not have to be a big role. It just has to be clear.
So, but what you're saying is like you're actually like writing yourself a script.
Yes, you have to do by yourself. And once you have a script, your brain stops searching and the awkwardness decreases.
That's exactly a brilliant idea, and maybe I will try it sometime when I'm awkward and have no role at all.
Yeah, I also want to try that one, and I'm also in the process of trying that one as well. And I think the deeper point here is that awkwardness often comes from freedom, like too many options, no clear path, and giving yourself a role is a way of narrowing the options, so your brain can relax.
So structure reduce awkwardness, right?
Yeah, and that's why rituals and routines feel so comfortable and they give you a mood.
Thank you, Lamon, for sharing the third reason why we feel awkward in the simple situation, right? So now let's move on to reason number 4. For this reason, I would like to share because reason number 4 is something like psychologists have studied quite a bit. It's called the spotlight effect. Have you heard of it?
Spotlight. I think I have heard of this, but don't know exactly what exactly it is. So can you explain it for me and for people who have not?
Okay, I think like most people have saw like this word spotlight effect, like maybe on TikTok because they say it a lot. So the spotlight effect is the tendency to believe that people are paying the attentions on you, that actually they are not paying attention on you at all. You feel like you're standing under a spotlight. You feel like every small things that you do is being noticed, judged, and remembered, and people is eyeing on you every time.
And that's not true, right?
It's actually almost never true because most people are actually like busy thinking about themselves as well to notice the small things you're doing, but the feeling is very real.
So how does this cause awkwardness in similar situations?
Let me paint a picture. So, like example, you're walking across a quiet room, and there are a few other people in the room as well, but no one is really looking at you, right? But in your head, you're feeling like everyone is watching at you, and you start to think like about like how the way you walking into the room. Is your gait normal? Are your arms swinging weirdly? Are your heels sounding like click clocking, or you're walking faster or like slower or something like that? You keep like um, asking yourself question and feel like you're being watched by other people.
I have thought about all of those things while walking across the room.
I think for this situation, like almost everyone feels the same. And here's what happened is that you're not actually being watched, but you feel like you are being watched. And that feeling changed your behavior and you get stiff, you get self-conscious, you start doing the very things you worry about, like walking weirdly because you're thinking too much about walking.
So it is, and it is also a self-fulfilling something.
Kind of like that, like you feel awkward because you think you're being observed, and then you act awkward because you feel awkward. Then you think, see, I am awkward.
So the simplicity of the situation creates a space for the subconsciousness, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like the less there is happening externally, the more your brains turn inward. And when your brain turn inward, it start imagining like an audience.
So how do you turn on the spotlight?
I think like you have to remind yourself actively and repeatedly that most people are not watching you. They are in their own spotlight. They are worried about their own like texture about walking across the room as well.
So it's more like no one is watching. It is that everyone is watching themselves, right?
Yeah, and the more you can shift the attention to observe others, not in the judgmental way, just noticing, the less you feel like you are the one being observed.
It's really helpful.
I think it's something like you reverse the spotlight, right? And instead of feeling like you're the one on the stage, you become part of the audience, and the audience doesn't feel awkward.
Okay, I think I can take no doubt for that future.
It take like practice if you're not going to stop being the spotlight overnight, but just knowing like it's just an illusion that the spotlight isn't real, you can take some of the pressure off.
So the awareness isn't coming from reality. It is coming from your imagination.
Yeah, and that's actually like good news because you can change what you can imagine, right? This is all I wanted to share
Okay, I like
about
that one.
level 4.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I really like that one, to be honest. The uncomfortable pause and the fear of silence.
Oh, the silence. So like the silence is loud sometimes, right?
Yeah, it really is. So here's what happens. You are in a simple conversation, and maybe you are waiting in line, maybe you are standing next to someone you sort of know, and maybe you just finish a transaction and then go silent.
And then the silence feels huge.
3 seconds, it feels like 3 minutes in your mind. And in the silence, your brain starts panicking. It starts searching desperately for something to say, like anything. It does not even have to be good. It has to fit the speed.
And that's when like you say something kind of weird, right?
Yeah. And that's when you say that here we are, or sure it's a day, or some other completely meaningless phrase that you will immediately regret.
I think I said like kind of that phrase so many times.
And here's why this happens. Like, science create a gap, and the gap feels like problems to be solved. Your brain is wired to solve the problems, so when the silence appears, your brain treat it as an emergency.
But silence is actually not an emergency.
No, it's actually not. Silence is quite neutral, but the silence is just silence, and we've been socialized to believe that silence is over, and that silence means something something is wrong, and the silence needs to be filled, like in our mind.
But where does the silence actually like come from?
I think it mostly comes from a few places. Like one is that in many social contexts, silence is interpreted as disinterest. And if you're not talking, maybe you're bored. Maybe you don't like the person. So we need to learn to fill the silence to prove that we are engaged.
So we're performing engagement through like constant talking, right?
Yes, and the irony is that constant talking is often more exhausting than silence would be.
So what do you do when this happens, and how do you sit with silence without actually feeling awkward?
I think you have to teach yourself that silence is allowed. You're allowed to be silent. And you have to patience not feeling it. And you have to let the pause happen and notice that no one dies.
Okay, no one dies.
Yeah, seriously, next time you are in a very simple action and there's a pause and just let it there. Don't rush into feeling it. Like count to three in your head, like 1, 2, 3, and you will probably find that the other person feels the silence before you do, and that's completely normal.
So like the awkwardness is actually that we created, right, by attempting to avoid the awkwardness itself.
Yes, and the fear of silence creates the very discomfort you're trying to avoid. And if you could just accept the silence, the awkwardness would dissolve.
I think it's quite true.
And here's the thing as well, like silence can actually be comfortable. Have you ever sat with someone you are very close to and just been silent together? No awkwardness at all.
Surprisingly, yes, like with my partner, Like sometimes we can sit for hours without like talking to each other and just maybe like doing our own stuff or just staring at something.
Exactly. So the problem is not about silence. The problem is the meaning you attach to silence. Like when you are with someone you trust, the silence means comfort. And when you are with a stranger that you don't, someone who you don't know, silence means awkwardness. So that actually is the same silence.
So the awkwardness is in the interpretations, not the pause itself.
Yes, and the more you can normalize silence, just like space, and the less power it will have over you.
I kind of want to practice that someday. Maybe I can go meet a stranger and practice the silence method.
Me too. I also want to do this. So let's actually practice right now. Like from now on, let's just be silent for 5 seconds on purpose and see what it feels like.
I think that is all we wanted to share about all the 5 reasons, right? Let's do a quick recap.
We have covered 5 reasons why we feel awkward in simple situations, right?
Yeah, so the reason number one that we have mentioned is that the gap between expectation and reality, when the invisible script in your head doesn't match what actually happened.
And the reason number 2 is self-monitoring overload, like watching yourself too closely in the situations that do not require that much attention.
Reason number three is the absence of a clear role, which Lamin have mentioned, and not knowing what you're supposed to do, and your brain has to improvise.
And reason number 4 is the spotlight effect, like feeling like everyone is watching you when they are actually watching themselves.
And the last reason that we have just talked about is the uncomfortable pause and the fear of silence, treating silence like an emergency when it's actually just a space.
So here's a list, and here's also what I want everyone to take away. Like feeling awkward in a single situation is not a sign that something is wrong with you.
It's not a personality flaw, it's just the social
Yeah,
deficit.
deficit. Yes, it is just your brain doing what brains do. Like predicting, monitoring, searching for the roles, imagining the audiences, and filling the gaps.
And once like you understand what actually is happening, the awkwardness starts to lose the power itself.
Exactly, and you cannot necessarily stop feeling awkward, but you can stop judging yourself for being awkward, and that's a huge difference.
I love that. And the goal like we're trying to like talk about here isn't to never feel awkward. The goal is to not feel bad about feeling awkward.
Yes, this that is the whole thing that we are trying to talk. Okay, that's today, and thank you so much everyone for joining us today, and then we will also want to see you next week, like when we are sharing another interesting topic again. Okay.
Bye bye.